Okay, so how did I get into games? What happened there? What is this? I've got a list of things I want to make sure I talk about as well. Let's get into that also. So if we scroll out a bit here, you can see I've got some stuff mapped out from like all of the years. From the people who were here earlier, I mean, you've seen the little, we kind of went through this. I'm going to touch a little bit on some of the stuff. I mean, I would say that first chunk here, we're going to talk about again. So I apologize. I just got so excited, man. So I guess you guys want to find out for the people who are trying to get into games or have just been curious about how I got into games. Family is very game centric. Like my dad today plays World of Warcraft. Like he's been playing since beta. He stopped briefly to play Division 1 and 2, the expansion, and then back to WoW. He's a gamer through and through. I have the uncle who inspired me to get into games, who worked at LucasArts and Sega. He is now enjoying the free time with 2 twins and his wife, doing a much more regular job. You know, feels good sometimes to just step back. This industry is very busy. And then the other uncle is actually at Blizzard. He's been there for over 10 years now, I think. Maybe even 12 or 13. But it runs in the family, right? I used to play, like I got introduced to D&D through the uncle who works at Blizzard. We won't go into that story because it's highly violent. And I think they were picking on me when I was little. But I thought it was the coolest thing, you know? So they all do art? No, actually, the one who was at LucasArts did art, but got into more of the production side of things. And then the one who is so more of a producer, right? And then the one who's at Blizzard is more production or a producer for the audio team. I'm not sure if that's what he is right now, but yeah. Hey, no talking about people's moms in chat, okay? Unless they were really helpful and friendly and made everyone feel good. But so when we look at what ended up happening to me in high school, I started getting into 3D through Bryce 3D. My uncle that was at LucasArts early on had given me actually a CD, for anyone who remembers what those are, with Max on it. It wasn't even 3DS Max at the time. I think it was just called 3DS. And that was on a CD, and you had to run it off of the CD, and I had to run it through DOS, right? And I was really excited. The first thing I really made, I guess, was a solar system. Uncle Lucas. That's hilarious. But yeah, so I got a little bit of a taste of that, and then I was doing Bryce 3D and working on MUDs at school. If you don't know what a MUD is, look it up. I was basically making imagery so that you knew what you were looking at, so you didn't have to read it through text. So diving into that stuff, I got really into, when I look back at it now, I was really into world building. Even in 2000, when I was doing MUDs, it was 2003. It was 2003. And then I ended up going to a school, just like, I mean, most people go to a school, right? And I was learning how to make game art. And it wasn't really, they didn't really have, because today you have a very structured, like you may not feel like it's very structured, but imagine going to a game program where they say, yeah, it's games. And the first 2 years of your 4-year program is in 2D art. And then the next 2 years is in 3D art. And you're expected to be a character artist and an environment artist. I don't know how MUDs, MUDS. It's an abbreviation as well. Yeah, so you're expected to, be a character artist as well. I actually convinced the character artist teacher that I did not want to make characters, and she let me make the details that the characters sat on for other people's characters, right? So then I was like, oh, what's your character going to be? I'll build like a podium or like a rock that they can pose and stand on. So that's what I was doing in character art class. I was very fortunate to be able to get to that position. But there was a very clear moment, and I talked about this earlier. I went from Maya to Max, I went from Max to Maya, and I was in Max for a year. Then I was in Maya for a year. And then I got an internship, which is where this guy comes in. So I got an internship in 2006 via a teacher that worked at the school. So the foot in the door, we should say, is when your work is excelling enough that you're sticking out and someone snatches you up. Does that make sense? So it was like I was active enough and talking to enough people that they were like, oh, we should utilize this guy's skill. He could like help the team. It'd be a good addition. And then I got an internship. Now, during the time of this internship, like I was saying earlier, there were Max and Maya users, and I fully switched to Max during this project because I saw workflows that I felt would make me faster, and I actively chose to make that decision, right? I think this is actually a really good time to talk about the fact that like when you see Blender, oh, the new hot like 3D modeling package, it does all the things, and you want to be part of that. You want to make sure you're not falling behind, so you learn the 3D package. The reality is when you're learning a 3D package, you're essentially halting all artist development for development in a tool, right? And it's not a bad thing. You just need to be aware of it. Oh man, I forgot about Rhino 3D as well. I was playing with, that's how I started doing hard surface in high school. I did not know that, Andre. That's crazy. You can download this game apparently. So Sparnana? That's a great question. So while I'm doing this internship, there's also managing your time, right? So not only am I switching to Max, I switched and actively chose to switch because I felt it would increase my production. Hey, Sandy, my production quality and speed. Because I was literally seeing it in front of me. It wasn't just everyone's talking about it. I should switch to Max. So be careful when you're looking at packages when they're like, Blender's doing all the new cool things. Oh man, it's amazing. It will halt your artistic abilities until you're comfortable technically with the software. That being said, I've also switched to Blender because because I like how Blender works for me. Once I got used to it, right? It takes time. Once you get used to it, it just made things faster for me. So I think it was a good choice. But it's not the same for everyone, as well as like some packages just work better for other people. So remember that when you're working on what 3D software you want to be using. Whatever you're using right now in school, it's probably best to stay with that one until you get a job. Just because you don't want to be burning your time that's in school learning a product when you should be learning the processes, like Polygon is saying in chat. Yeah, and dude, if it's faster for you, do it. So managing your free time because like while I was doing this internship, I was also going to school. I was also working, and I was also trying to figure out what I wanted to put in my portfolio. The hope was I was going to get a job with these guys, and in the long term, I actually did not. And there's a whole story I went into earlier. I'll go into it, but I'll keep it a little briefer this time. But the idea is like, if you want to be, oh man, I skipped so many points. You guys, I'm just too excited. I'm going to go back a little bit. So when it comes to school and the perspective of school, and Sparna, I'm going to get to your question as well. When it comes to the perspective of school, you have to remember in 2004 to 2007, which was when I was in private school, I guess, because it wasn't uni, it wasn't a university. There wasn't any resources. Like, you couldn't just go online and go to YouTube and watch a video. It was polycount at 3D total, and then it slowly became things like Game Artisans and Eat 3D on DVD. And man, DVDs, that was like a flash in the pan. It happened so fast and then was just kind of gone. But yeah, you're just trying to gain knowledge, right? And then if you can extrapolate that information to create content, then you're not being blocked by the software and you're not being blocked by deadlines. You're just creating content. And that's what's so great about the time at school. Dude, I ordered texture packs on CD from 3D Total. That's right, man. Good old days. Little dash of vodka. No. But yeah, I was working while I was doing this, and I was fortunate enough that my family, like, I talked to my parents about it, and they decided to help me with bills. Insanely fortunate. I know not everyone has that opportunity, right? But they helped me with bills so that I could stop school and focus on my internship, and even more so on my portfolio. The other thing is, during this time, man, we're really sitting on this frame for a while, huh? During this time, it's really important to understand that I had surpassed what the school offered me, and I feel like a lot of people feel that quite early. So it's like, oh, the school's teaching me all this stuff. Like, now I know all of it, or I already knew the thing they're teaching me. What do I do now? And it's even crazier now because, like, you can just get all of that on YouTube, right? You can get that all online. Oh yeah, never forget Noman's DVDs. They were too expensive for me, man. I couldn't do it. But yeah, so it was like, okay, I'm exceeding what the school program is giving me. You have to remember that the school is only a tool, just like a 3D software, right? If you exceed what they're teaching you, it's okay. If you do end up getting a job before you finish school, you can make the choice to finish school and get the paper and then go get a job, or you can stop school and just get right into the job. And people kind of go on both sides of those. I think for me, it would depend on the company, but yeah, if you exceed the school, just use the time that you have there, because now you have what we would consider a community of like-minded people around you to push with you on becoming better artists, which is very much like what I really like about the Empire, especially right now, is everyone's like working towards the same goal of just becoming better. And now you have that online. So there's even more of a drive to, like, if you're exceeding the school's expectations because of their program, now start showing the teachers how much you're exceeding, because now they will use you as a platform to not only show the quality of their school, right? But they'll also elevate you, and someone will see you outside of the school. Does that make sense? So it's a win-win in just pushing yourself, even if you go outside of the school program. I also don't dog on people for going to school for this stuff, because it's like, people learn in all types of different ways. And for me, having that social element, it's a mutual benefit. Yes. It's having that social element really helped me, because I'm like a very extroverted person. And, like, for example, they didn't have ZBrush So I got them to install it. And then I learned ZBrush, and then gave what I learned to people around me as they got curious about it. And slowly they made a program around it, but that didn't really help in the long run. They're too slow, man. They were too slow. But yeah, so there was a clear direction that I wanted to go in, where I started to specialize and was like, I want to be an environment artist. And especially when I started working at this internship, that's what I was. I did some props, but it was a lot of like building scenes and seeing what, like, collecting assets and putting them all together. Nice, Paul. Paul teasing his talk. I think that, like, that's when I realized that you don't always make props, because this project wasn't AAA. And I quickly learned that, like, oh, you can make props, or you can get really good at setting a scene up. I didn't have to do lighting. I didn't have to figure out like where the sky was or how the water would work, or it was very specific that I was just building towns or areas or rock formations that you were boating around. Paul's TED Talk is incoming, guys. You'll see him soon. I'm actually really excited about that one, Paul. So when it comes to specializing, it's a good and a bad thing, right? I decided I wanted to be an environment artist, which was propping scenes and doing less of the, I'm going to make the props. I'm just going to make scenes look cool. Getting all those details in there and calling it good. Now, I used a lot of the internship time to actually learn to be better. An environment artist and a level artist, depending on what studio you're talking to, are the same thing. It really depends. Some studios will say level artist, some will say environment artist, and they're literally talking about the same job role. Dude, I've been a world artist as well. What's that? I think technically I am a level artist. If you look at if you look at my documents. Textile density wasn't even talked about on this project. It's weird. It was a weird time, man. 2006, weird. But yeah, so specializing is a good and a bad thing. Because I'll be super honest. Like, what I want to do in streams in the future, probably sometime around next year, is I want to start diving more into blueprints, more into making playable experiences. Because I don't know how to do any of that. I have no idea. I specialized so early, and I would say that this is a good and a bad thing, right? I specialized so that I could rise up pretty high in that small, narrow field. And I think that, oh man, I'm seeing so many questions from you guys. If you can post them in Discord, I can't even write Discord right now. If you can post those in Discord, that's going to help me keep track of them. Let me see here and just make sure. There's a channel called Questions for DinCon. Just post it in there. You'll be good to go. it's no problem. I just feel bad because I'm going to miss a bunch of them. But yeah, I specialized. And I used a lot of the internship time to work on being a level or environment artist. Now, with that being said, now I wasn't working. I was doing just this project and my portfolio at home, and then whatever I had to do at school. You can introduce yourself as well. That's fine. And then, yeah, speaking on specialization, I shot myself in the foot a little bit because I went from, I'm just going to prop a bunch of scenes to, like, literally today, I don't know how to skin a door or like skin an object to like animate it. I don't know how to animate either. I'm so specialized in building static scenes that, like, the scenes you're seeing me build right now in Unreal with that stylized scene that's based off Tim's concept, There's so many things in there I've never done before, like particles and getting things moving around. Oh man, Andrea's bringing it out. I used to work at Abercrombie and Fitch as a model. That was a job I quit so that I could focus on Pirates of the Burning Sea in my portfolio. Oh boy. Anyways, so there's a lot that I need to catch up on when it comes to specializing. But that's when I got super serious, right? It was like, okay, I need to not work and just do the Pirates of the Burning Sea game and work on my portfolio and do okay in school. And then it's like, okay, these guys aren't going to give me a job. What do I need to do about that? And that's where it becomes like online communities. Olamed, did I just like right hook you in the face? You can thank Andrea in chat for that one. Where was I at? We're reading through my notes here. Oh, I had to figure out how I'm going to get a job because these guys weren't going to hire me. And it's like, okay, well, now what? So I got super hyper focused and was like, I need to make a portfolio because I was never do this as well. I was betting on this project hiring me. And so I wasn't working on my portfolio. So I had about 6 months to graduate, till graduation. And it was like, okay, well, now I got to build this portfolio because I thought these guys were going to hire me. I don't know what's going on here, but it's time. I'm just going to push for it. It's going to happen. And so I applied myself a very intense setup or regiment. And it worked for me because I think I stuck to it so clearly. And I also planned it out before I committed to it, right? Because like, if you don't plan it out and you just start working a crazy amount of time, you're just going to burn. You need to have like micro achievements and goals that reinforce and make you feel good about what you're doing. You don't want to overdo it. You'll burn out before. And I'm seeing it a lot right now, especially with people schooling from home and working from home and doing the little side hustle stuff on the side. Side hustle, man, that thing's crushing people's souls. You got to be really careful with it. In my break, right between here, Maddie's like, make sure to not push yourself too hard. She's like, she's seeing me do the DinCon stuff. It's going really good. I love doing this with you guys. But prepping DinCon, 4 streams a week, work, relationships, dog. If it gets too much, you gotta, scale it back. So after DinCon, we're gonna slow down a little bit. I'll just focus on the Empire and doing my streams, just having a good time. Just let's take it easy. But yeah, be really careful about that because it's like you can't balance that stuff. When you're like in your early 20s, all you're made out of is ambition. You're just like, I got to do all this stuff and you've got all these programs you got to learn, right? Like you got to be really careful because you don't have to learn all those programs. Like you could literally just use Blender and Substance Painter in Unreal and you could build a portfolio good enough to get a job as a environment artist or a props artist. You just need those 3. I would say Photoshop as well, because you need to build that, that nice presentation. Tell that to my boss. Oh man. I mean, dude, if you're a student too, a lot of stuff is quite cheap, right? Quad force power. Yeah. But so I got hyper focused. And when I say hyper focused, I was going to sleep at 10, or I guess we should say 22, right? And then waking up at 6, working until 12 on art, just portfolio art, and then having lunch for an hour, And then at 13, working until, what is that? What is 7? I always forget this. 2019? 19. Yes, 19. And then watching a movie with my partner at the time. Thanks, chat. And then going to bed again at 10. And then I did that every day where I didn't have school and I didn't have my internship. And I did that for about 6 months, which is really, really intense. But I knew what I was trying to make. It's like, all right, I got to make this scene. I'm going to make 2 scenes. They're going to be full of these props. I planned out the props, what the scene was going to be, all that stuff. Planned it all out. And then it was just about executing. And even if I were to do that today, I bet I could do the same thing with less time, because now you have all these resources where you can use like 10% of your assets can be assets from outside of the like, you don't even have to make it. You can just download them and they're free. Just make sure you credit them and you can just, it's fine. Just 10% of your scene can do that. It's okay. And oh man. But yeah, you do have to manage your time. You do need to have downtime, and you do need to have time to just like appreciate what you've done in the last 6 hours, as well as like what you've achieved for the week. Answer those questions at the end of your day. Like, what did I do? And then yeah, so I did that, and then we had our portfolio review, like you guys heard earlier. And the portfolio review was really kind of crazy, because I had reached out to communities, right? And I was like, okay, how am I going to get like people looking at my stuff? And places like Game Artisans, Polycount, Eat 3D, CG Society, I think I was even posting in. You just post your stuff everywhere. Don't spam people. That doesn't feel good. But you have to, like, you're advertising yourself, right? And yeah, you're getting your stuff out there. Someone contacted me on Polycount. Again, I'm sorry, I'm repeating some of this stuff. Someone contacted me on Polycount and then told me like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna be at your guys' portfolio review for the class of people that are graduating. We'll make sure to come by and look at your stuff." And I was like, "Oh man, this is sweet." Someone actually replied. This is great. I did get some other replies in there, but they're more like constructive criticism and trying to update things. Oh, straight up? Okay, I see that in chat right now. LinkedIn, join it. People are like, I don't know if LinkedIn is actually maintaining professional image. Like, you're only posting things in there that you want the recruiters to see. Your professional image is there. ArtStation, sure, professional image. You're posting your art there. Link that stuff into your LinkedIn. Just having that linked in there, and just whatever you post on Twitter, whatever you post on Instagram, put it there. And yes, Instagram is also a valid option. But yeah, LinkedIn. Yeah, Lisa's the ambassador of LinkedIn for sure. But yeah, they said they were going to come. They looked at my portfolio, and the next thing you know, I give them my business card, because everyone makes those these days. And I had an interview the next day. It was just a short call. And then they asked me to come on site. And this is where I'm glad that you guys make sure you set that you're looking for work. Recruiters use that flag for sure on LinkedIn. Yes, they do. Same with ArtStation. They gave me an interview, and do your research. I said this earlier. I will say it again because it's super important, even if it's doubling up. Know who you're interviewing for, because it's an interview for you, right? They're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them. So you're going to want to understand, like, don't be shy to ask them the questions. Like, how do they deal with overtime? What do they do about crunch? Do they have any plans for when that happens? How do they usually handle it? Just, if you ask those questions, you're immediately like, especially imagine going in as a junior for an interview of a junior, and they're just like, what? You know what I mean? Because like, dude, the way the industry is now, and including the educational side and all of the students, we're so intertwined that you're safe. You can ask so many questions in these online communities, in the Empire and EXP and in the club. Everyone is talking to each other. And so you get so much more information. I didn't know how much to be asking for. And they straight up asked me how much I expect to make. And then use that to set my pay when they hired me, which is not that is not good. I think I undershot myself. I was saying earlier, I think by 10%. And it is really important that you know what your value is, especially going into the industry at first, because right from the get-go, because I shot myself in the foot by 10%, it took me about 5 years to get to where I should have been, plus the 5 years of industry time. How can you just know that? You have websites like Glassdoor, for example. People are posting their salaries online. There's anonymous, like if you wanted to, you could probably contact unions. I know in Sweden you could contact a union and they'll actually give you documents, like Excel documents showing that information. Those documents are kind of floating around on the communities as well. You just have to be asking. I get so shy to hop in a voice chat. Voice chat can be a little intimidating. But like, if there's a union, I mean, even if there's not a union in your country, you have the online communities are willing to talk about this stuff, right? I mean, hell, I could do an anonymous survey for the Empire and just have everyone feed into it, and you can then see which countries are paying what for what job title. We can do that together. You know what I mean? So I shot myself in the foot. It took me 5 years to get to where I was supposed to be. And yeah, eventually I got there. We can finally move on to the next game because a lot of the stuff that happened to me was quite early in my industry experience. So these guys weren't hiring me. I got a job offer. We're looking at some of the portfolio work here earlier that I submitted. This one cracks me up still. Just because I 3D ripped Call of Duty to understand how they build things, and then found out like, oh, that's how they do it, and then it like leveled me up instantly. I was saying earlier, I think it's the same thing as like what you guys experience when you see someone do something in a video or in a stream. Man, it blew my mind. And I thought it was cool to show this stuff because like the way this is formatted reminds me a lot of like how, look, it even has my old website in there. Terrible. But yeah, I was like trying to learn how to concept and do ZBrush and stuff. I had the only ZBrush model when I finished school. So that was kind of nice. And I wanted to show you guys projects that I started to do and then just stopped. I was like, then this guy. So now I'm technically in the industry, right? What I would say about people that are getting into the industry or are about to enter the industry, it's good to relax once you get in. And I want to say that you should, like, you push really hard to build this. Sig, I don't even think you're allowed to do that. No. I think I was 18 when I did that. Well, anyways, so I think when it comes to like you get a good grasp on what you need to build. Ole. You get a good grasp on what you need to build. You build your portfolio out. You join communities, right? You need to be active. You don't need to be like spamming everyone or hyperactive, but consistent activity and being someone that everyone can remember your name and you're not abrasive in conversation, like it's easy to just kind of hang out and just have a good chat with anyone, right? That's someone that is hireable, that you could teach stuff if you can see that they learn, right? Yeah, Ben says that he remembers having an overwhelming sense of now what when he got his first job. It was I was working towards it for so long, and then it completely pulled the rug. Yes. Yeah, it completely pulled the rug out from under you. You're so used to the grind, building the portfolio, and then you get that job and you're like, do I is this it? Is it can I stop now? But it's so ingrained into you that it's very difficult to stop. But you need to stop and reward yourself. Hang out with your friends again. You know, if you were cutting all of that off, you need to hang out with your friends again. And then like enjoy playing games. Just enjoy your free time, because you've just been rewarded with this job that you've worked so hard to get. And I mean, when people join games and they get that first job, you'll notice that they kind of disappear from their online social networks. Like you get a job, let's say Tobias, he gets his first job, right? And it's like, okay, now what? He's focusing at work while he's working. He learns all these things at work, and then your brain's mush. There's so much going on at work. You're learning so many workflows. Your brain's mush. And then you go home and you have the itch to work on your portfolio because that's all you've known. You have to stop that. Your brain's mush. And you'll notice people just back up from their Discords, from their chat groups, and they just kind of disappear for a little while. And that's totally fine. Dude, you need the brain room. You know what I mean? So I had the brain room, but I only had it for a little while. So I started here at Zombie Studios, and this was 2007. 2008 rolls around. This was late 2007, I think I joined. And man, no, I don't. I'm getting all my dates confused. Either way, I was there for like 4 to 6 months. And then the economy tanked, and they ended up laying. There's a lot of details that go on into the studio. They did a really good job of taking care of us, but they laid off like 72% of the staff because the publisher filed bankruptcy within the week of the economy tanking. So that was like, oh man, now what? I would say when you get your foot into the door of the industry, your foot is in the door. This sounds super scary, and don't be freaked out by this. Your foot is in the door, your hand is on the handle. You open the door and you start walking in. That's getting your foot in the industry, right? Or in getting your foot in the door to the industry. You're not actually closing the door behind you and are in the industry until maybe like either a year or two of development under your belt, like a year or two of game experience, or you ship a game. With the caveat that you meet people at the studio that you're at. And my lighting is starting to change because we're supposed to end the stream already. We're going to fix that. Yeah. This is why it's really important to know and communicate and have this network of people around you. It's key to that stuff. Because like if the rug gets pulled out from under you like that, you have other people around you that are like, oh man, that sucks. And like you see it on Twitter as well. When a studio shuts down or there's big layoffs, all the studios like pile in and they're like, all right, who's looking to like work with us, you know? So I did not finish this game. It did finish. They got a publisher. They rehired everyone. They contacted me, but I had already done a art test and had accepted another job. So out of respect, it's like I should go to that studio. Andre asks, why is getting an internship or entry level position so hard nowadays? What's going on? I think it's always been hard. There's a lot of people entering or trying to enter the industry, but how many of them would you say are of the caliber, right, to get that entry level position? Let's say 100 people graduate. If I had to take a wild guess, I would say maybe, I shouldn't even guess on that. I would say 10%, 15% of that 100, like 15 people are like pretty good. Maybe 20 people are all right. And then like 1 or 2 are like, holy crap, get this person in the industry immediately. I think the experience requirement of some junior roles is a little much, though. Yeah, you have a junior position that requires 1 to 2 years of industry experience. Some studios use that as a deterrent. Some use that as a way to gauge if you're confident in your skill and you apply anyways. Sometimes it's there arbitrarily. Other times it's there to chart, like if you've gone to school, that studio would count it as industry time. For every 2 years, it would be 1 year of industry time. There's a lot of caveats to that. If you're trying to get a junior position and they have a time amount on there that says like 1 to 2 years, just apply anyways. You're a junior. You're supposed to be a junior. Apply. If your art is not good enough, that's what will stop you. But no, I ended up, where are we at here? Oh yeah, I did this stuff while I was at Zombie as well. Was like learning how to do modeling, and dude, look at that. There's not even like metal materials on there. But I was trying to learn hard surface because I was interested in Bungie at the time. I took this art test. This is actually an art test for Snowblind Studios to do War in the North. I was really happy with that game. I think I shipped it in 2011. But yeah, this was the art test. I just sculpted it and then textured it. And this is this is literally the viewport in 3ds Max. Oh man. When can you start applying for oh, actually, I'll answer that one in a second here. Nin oh man, I can never say your name. Why is it so hard to get in the industry? 10 to 15 out of 100. That's depressing. So the reality is people, anyone can go to the school, right? Anyone can finish the school. It's the determination and the drive to push yourself. Win to? Is that how you say it? Win to? The determination to push yourself above the bar is what gets you into that higher percentage. Kaza, thank you, man. You can't expect what you learn at the school to get you there. It just shows you where the direction to walk, right? You have to start making the walk yourself. So I ended up shipping this game. Super proud with this one. And then I started working on other games with the studio. So I was still at Snowblind at the time. I should actually do this. I was still at Snowblind. Right? So Snowblind. Zombie. So I was at Zombie, then I went to Snowblind. I was at Snowblind for 4 years, almost 4 years. And I shipped a bunch of games with them. At the same time, I worked on some Skrillex work. Which was just like side job stuff. Snowblind was also acquired by Warner Brothers the day I started, so I was technically part of Monolith eventually when we all merged together. And then I made the jump to Turn 10. Now, Turn 10 was a contract So this had a pretty interesting. It was a pretty interesting turn of events. The contract was only for a year, but I'd hit a point where I wanted senior. I fought for it quite hard. I think I just got tired because the studio, I would say, didn't do anything wrong. It just in my mind at the time, I hadn't been getting what I was pushing for. You know what I mean? So I went from mid-level to senior for a contract just to get the senior title and the pay increase. And yeah, going from here was really good. Shadow of Mordor ships from Snowblind. Congratulations to that team, or from Monolith, I should say. This game was amazing. Turned out great. I was working here. This is something a lot of people ask about as well. So this was only a year contract. And then you're required to wait a certain amount of time before you can renew a contract. It's a rule for contractors in Washington State. So I'm waiting for that to renew. But around the time that the contract is about to end, I was like, I should start looking for other places to go. And someone told me, by someone I mean Ryan Hawkins. You might know him from Vertex magazine from back in the day, the digital art book. He was running an art team in Sweden, and he told me to apply. And I'm like, dude, I'm like nowhere near good enough. And just to give you a perspective, I'm about to ship Forza. I helped ship Gotham City Imposters. I did the Skrillex stuff, the War in the North game, and then helped with Saw and ship this game. And I still, in my mind, I'm like, okay, it's 2006. We're at 2013 now. That I feel like I don't have enough experience to be flown overseas to work at a company. So I've got this weird like imposter syndrome, right? So the reality is just apply. So I applied. I actually ended up getting in. And while I was waiting for my work visa, I started building all this stuff and just trying to get better at things. This is still in Max. Then I started doing some ZBrush things. Man, Gotham City Imposter, I was super happy with that game. And then, and then I got to Sweden. Around the time that I was here, this is massive, right? Around this time, my lead, Chad Chatterton, great guy, used Modo. This is when I switched to Modo. Learned a little bit of Substance Designer. Hey, Melissa, you have a good night. Thanks for hanging out. Learned a little bit of Substance Designer, and then started the Empire. Roughly around, I think it was around this time. Yeah. And the goal of the Empire was to push myself to make more art, right? And if I dig through all this stuff, you can see I was exploring a lot of things. This was me like really exploring Modo and what it could offer me. Founded the Empire. And I mean, the rest is kind of history, right? Because then I just keep shipping stuff. Around this time is actually, this is when I switched to Blender. And then now we're in this territory. And I just kind of keep going. We talked about the portfolio earlier. I'm not going to dive into that now. I'm going to go through your guys' questions and then call it a night. Let me go to the Discord. Let's see how flooded this is now. Oh yeah, some questions for tonight's stream, Jeremy. What are 3 things would you say need to be evident on a student portfolio in order for it to stand out to recruiters? So I think consistency. Like if you want to be making stylized stuff, consistent, right? It should all be stylized stuff. And what do you mean? What am I working on? I'm working on the Dynasty Empire. Come on, man. So consistency is number 1. pushing your quality. Like when I see someone posting work that they're not usually posting on their portfolio, or you see something that's not maybe as good as their other stuff, I read the description, because sometimes it says, oh yeah, I'm going a little bit out of my comfort zone. This is what I posted. Walker, it's okay, man. This is what I posted and what I made, and that's where it's at. Just make sure you're clear about that. I think the other things I would say on your portfolio. So if you, where are we at here? Did I close mine? Why not? So if you go to the portfolio here, right? Just bring this up. So if we're looking at my portfolio, if you're using Pro, you should probably blog post. Kaze, DM me. Show me what you got. You should blog post. It's the best way to show your progress. Your about page should have something in it, as well as all the ways to contact you. And any of your skill set should be in here. If you can put your CV in here, which I think you can, you should add your CV to your ArtStation. But yeah, I think consistency is key. I don't think you need to have do I also check the blogs? Not usually, unless someone says there's stuff in the blog, because it's not their portfolio. I'm reviewing their portfolio, right? Blog even if still a beginner? Oh, totally. Even more so if you're a beginner. Document all of your progress, the stuff you've discovered, the things you're exploring. It says I'm open to freelance. Does that include voice acting? Yes, it does. Ben always checks the blog. Dude, I don't blog enough either. Yeah, so I'm trying to think if there's a third. I guess it's just proficiency in your craft. Like if you're always chasing software, you're not focusing on your art, right? So your quality of your craft can't go up. If you have any tips or advice for students lucky enough to reach, I guess I think I covered that enough, Paul. Lucky enough to reach the interview stage. How does it work in games industry context wise? I know in VFX films contracts can be like 3 months. Does that happen in games often too? Not often, but it does happen. It's pretty big in Washington State and California to do contracting positions. Ben, thoughts on enjoying to make games versus enjoying to make art? Can you make games if you only like making art? Should you even go into games? How to know where you sit on that spectrum? I mean, I think it's a natural progression. Some people like to become game developers, and that's how they look at the entire thing. Like I think Chris Radsby is a great example of that. I think for myself, when I went into games, it was all about the art and making it look as cool as possible, right? But over time, I've become more of what I would consider a developer. It's not just about the art. And at the end of the day, if the game is not fun, it's not fun. So if there's anything art can do while also making it pretty to help make the game more fun, why wouldn't you do that? Right? I think that's where I sit. And I think when you ask yourself what you want to be doing or what you want to be contributing to a game, that's kind of how you figure out where you are at on that spectrum. And I would say that also shifts. It's not always going to be in the same spot. Do you have any tips for setting deadlines for yourself while working on personal projects? If so, are there any do's and don'ts for personal deadlines? So I would think about it in stages. Of course, there's get all your references, then do the block out your props you want to add to the scene, prop the scene with all the blockouts, lighting pass, like first texture pass on all the big things, do some props, kind of go back and forth between all those lighting adjustments, and you just keep working your way up to a first pass on everything. then tell yourself, good job, polish it up, find your camera angles, hopefully earlier than now, and then post that on ArtStation. That really, really simplifies it, I know, but when it comes to do's and don'ts, have a process that you always go through. That's always the same if possible. And don't make your scene too big. You will always end up making your scene too big. Shrink it down. Always ask yourself, am I even showing this area in my screenshots? What is the goal of this scene? What am I building? What's the goal? I think if you can shrink it down, you're in a much better position. What's the percentage of really good hireable environment artist portfolios you see when people apply? I mean, I can't speak for where I'm at now, but in the previous places that I've worked at, I would say, let's say you get 15 portfolios, probably 3 or 4 of them. And a lot of the times they're just like, you can tell they're blanket applying, or they're just applying to try and get into the company, maybe not through the role that they've actually applied through. And it really depends how picky you're being on that role, right? So hireable is a very gray, flexible word. Blanket applying would mean that you're applying to like every studio around you, or you're applying to a role that you're not actually suited for just because you're trying to get into that company. Let's see. Are there any mindsets to get into if you feel your previous experience might be overshadowing your portfolio, especially when trying to find the first art job? I mean, I think, Nick, that's a great question. So when your previous experience might be overshadowing your portfolio, I mean, I think that like what your portfolio shows at the end of the day is what gets you the job. So if you can't get a job, it's got to be the portfolio. And hopefully you're asking other people about what you're posting online. We're saying it as if it's you. I don't know if it's you specifically, but if you're applying, you should be getting a job if your portfolio fits what they're looking for, right? And if it's not, hopefully they're telling you that. But that's where communities come in, and you ask the people around you, like, am I crazy? Is my portfolio, is it up to snuff yet? You know what I mean? Is it good enough yet? And if it's not, hopefully they're telling you that, because I think that's where the bottom line is. If your portfolio is not good enough, it's just not going to happen. Any do's and don'ts on trying to break into the industry? Any advice? Don't spam developers directly about like, I know in chat here we're kind of talking about it, and I don't feel like you're spamming me at all. But like, if you're messaging people on Discord and you're like, hey, how do I get into the studio? Like, build relationships with these people, right? Be part of the community. Be someone that they actually want to talk to. And like, a conversation naturally will form. You're going to be all right. Any advice on keeping up motivation while not burning out in a competitive environment? You have to take breaks. Whenever you take a break, you have to accept that someone else is working, but they also have to take breaks, right? Oh, Zero, I see. Recruiters looking at your experience and not your portfolio. I mean, that sounds like a bad recruiter, because like, I think that's why there's recruitment websites, because then I see the portfolios that are applying as well. It doesn't just stop at the recruiter. So even if the recruiter were to push you away, I can see the list of the people that the recruiter has pushed away. You know what I mean? But yeah, motivation. I mean, you just have to you have to take breaks, and you have to find things that you can feel proud about, right? Like, oh, I finished this thing. Good job. Tell yourself good job because you finished something. That'll push your motivation quite high up. And try not to compare yourself to ArtStation. It's full of people that are flooding their portfolios with crazy work that we feel like we can't compare to. Don't be too freaked out about that. There's always someone better, and that's okay. Hey Jeremy, I was wondering if you could pin. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13. We have 13 more questions. Foozle's holding out strong. I appreciate you, Foozle. Okay, hey Jeremy, I was wondering if you could pinpoint it to one thing that was your personal greatest challenge when trying to enter the industry or in your first entry-level position that you got. Let's go DinCon. I love it. Pinpoint one thing that was your personal greatest challenge when trying to enter the industry. I think it was the ZBrush scene, because I taught myself ZBrush by myself and was really happy about it. And that is the main thing that made me stick out from everyone that was finishing. Yes, Paul, that's a great message. Compare yourself to yourself. Compare yourself to how you were 6 months ago. I'm reading chat now. But yes, let's see here. Yeah, I think it was that ZBrush scene. Quick question, but a difficult one to write. English is not my native language. Totally fine. Do you think doing a physical portfolio like a mini art book with a real layout and nice paper to show at art school is a good idea? I mean, it sets you apart. I don't think it's a bad idea. It's not a big investment, I take it. I think it's cool. Just make sure you have digital stuff because that's what they're going to walk away with, unless you print out a book for every single person, in which case I would not suggest that. Any tips to finish your work tasks faster, but also in great quality? Try to remove steps that you don't need to do, or look at ways to make those, like break your work process into steps and then figure out how to optimize each of those steps, or ways to move the steps in different order in order to actually texturing before modeling. That's a process that speeds up a whole lot of stuff, right? Just it's looking for ways to do shortcuts. Sometimes I struggle to call a task done because there's always something that I want to change or improve. So when you're having a hard time saying a task is done, switch to another task and come back to it later. Call it done for now and you'll come back to it. Because by the time you come back to it, maybe the entire image looks good and then you're good to go. Do you think it's a problem to have gaps in your portfolio posts, like multiple months? I wouldn't say it's a problem, no. Because people aren't looking at the gaps in time. They're looking at your quality improvement. There could be a huge gap in your time and then all of a sudden you're like crazy good, right? And if you're not, then you're not. But they're not going to be like, oh, all that time went by and he didn't, what happened? They don't look at it like that. I would say for the most part. And I mean, anyone who does is just wasting their time trying to sit there and number things. What's the difference between junior, mid, senior, and lead artist? That is a great question. So a junior is someone who has just entered the industry. They're no longer an intern, and they're capable of completing tasks and being given tasks to do, right? Mid-level is someone that's even more capable. They tend to take on bigger tasks. They will help juniors. Juniors will look to mid-level, and they'll just they'll keep everything moving along and supporting seniors. Seniors are doing even larger tasks, usually managing a lot of stuff and supporting leads or onboarding interns or helping juniors and mid-levels get used to the project. Because a mid-level could be a new person in the company, right? Now, a lead usually is going to a decent amount of meetings, not usually doing too much art depending on the studio size and or how the studio works. They're usually going to a decent amount of meetings and planning things and helping their team grow. Essentially, if I were your lead, you would expect me to help you be a better you by the end of the project, as well as helping you finish the game, right? That's a lead. Anything that's blocking your way, I should be trying to help you figure out what's blocking you and helping you understand how to unblock yourself. And if that requires me to go talk to another department or whatnot, then I will do that while you focus on your work. Yeah. Hey, Din, I'm an aspiring lighting artist. How closely do you work with lighting artists? Quite closely. As an environment artist, very closely. And what do you look out for in lighting artists? I mean, I think framing and good storytelling. Dude, that right there is a perfect one. Market, Tobias. We'll pull that out for you. I mean, when it comes to lighting artists, it's all about composition and just making a scene look good, right? Man, we are running on time, guys. I think where are we at? I need to cut the questions at Lisa. But DM me if you still have questions. Okay, where are we at here? Joel, how do you manage work ethic? Struggling at getting things done at a reasonable pace and always having a crunch at the end. So understanding how long it takes to do something and then not taking on too much onto your plate is the best way to alleviate yourself from tasks flooding onto you to the point where you are in a position of crunch. Hopefully you work at a company that tells you, hey, you've got a lot of stuff on you. These are estimated to take longer than you have. We should move these to the next sprint, or we should cut the content so that it fits into a window. Someone should be helping you look out for that. And if they're not, you should be helping yourself look out for how long something's going to take and alerting people around you saying, hey, this is too much. I can't actually get this done. Hey, Viral, have a good one, man. I look forward to seeing you on Discord. Let's see here. Hello, Jeremy. I'm new here, so I don't know if you'll answer this question. This may be a dumb question. There's no such thing. But have you ever had the impression that you weren't good enough for the job you wanted to apply for? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I think I'm not that bad, but I'm always very critical. A lot of us are critical about what I do, but now come the time to seek an internship and stresses come up. How do you cope with it? You have to just get past it. You will be like the rest of us. Join us in our misery. No, it's difficult. I know, but you just have to accept that the reality is there's always someone better than you, but there's always someone that's not as good as you as well. Imposter syndrome is a hell of a drug. Vertex, that's perfect. But I mean, if you're not confident in yourself for a position, just post in a community and see where you're at. Spart, hey, have a good one, man. Thanks for coming by. There's a YouTube video for me talking about interviews and what you should do. Just look up DiNusty interview. Have you ever dealt with imposter syndrome? Yes, all the time. Dude, I got imposter syndrome. I'll straight up say this. I got imposter syndrome with art communities because I made the Empire, right? And I'm very proud of what the Empire is. I still got imposter syndrome, but it wasn't even about art. It was about making sure I had a good community. You have all these other ones popping up, and I'm like, oh my god, am I even good enough? All I had to tell myself is, if I'm helping someone, worth it. But imposter syndrome comes in waves. It'll hit everyone, and you just learn to deal with it a little bit more every day. Thanks, Jason. We are so over time. Oh my god. Let me just make sure I'm getting. Have you ever 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? We have 6 more to go. Have you ever dealt with imposter syndrome? No, yes, read that one already. Would you say it is still worth applying even if you doubt your own work? Yes. The worst thing that will happen is they say no. Ben's helping out in chat as well, I see. Thanks, Ben. Should self-taught artists try for internships or just junior positions? That's a good question, because a lot of internships I've seen get filled by students as part of their program. Yeah, if you don't shoot, you always miss. Like art, that's a great message. I would say if there's a way to apply for an internship, apply. If there's a junior position and you want to work there and you think you've got enough on your portfolio to do it, apply. The worst thing that happens is they say no. Or the worst thing that happens is they never say anything. The next best thing is they reply, they say no, sorry, and then they tell you why. Those are amazing when you get those ones. I've recently been working on learning to sculpt properly. In the last few months, I've made quite some progress. I was asking myself if I should post the whole progression or rather only the last few sculpts in my portfolio. Last few months, I've made quite some progress. I mean, a time lapse is kind of interesting, but I think the final image and like showing your work, maybe a few work in progress shots, is good enough. A lot of the times people post videos on their ArtStation and I actually don't watch them. I just look at their screenshots. I will much rather watch a video that just loops of particles floating around and just showing the scene than watching a video that was edited and cut at their own pace and like how they decided to, cut a scene together. I me art. That's so funny. Changing my question. How long should it take to complete an asset for your portfolio from start to finish? That is a really broad question because it depends how big the thing is. If it's really small, you know what I mean? It's like it depends. If it's a single prop, I would say 4 or 5 days. If it's a really hard surface, like crazy, then it becomes like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks if you're not comfortable with it. I usually make mini dioramas. Dioramas are great. Showcase my assets. Is this favored by employers? I think dioramas are great. I think the perfect portfolio would have 2 environments and maybe like 2 or 3 dioramas. And then all the props for all of those and each one of those posts kind of like under it. And you're good to go. As an environment artist building dope of a folio to get hired in AA, is it better to make quicker static scenes with nice lighting compositions and all, or is it better to take twice the time to have a roamable walk? No way, man. Twice the time? No one's got time for that. I would say static scene, nice lighting. You can make 2 of those in the time it would take you to make a roamable. You can maybe even make 3 instead of a roamable space. Walkable environments are a huge time sucker and require you to know a whole lot more than just Juice. I can get that for you after this. Do you mind DMing me if someone can't find it for you? Let's see. Kind of see the difference between game focused portfolio and cinematic films focused portfolio on this stuff. On this. Oh, I mean, I see what you're saying. I still think that a static scene is going to do better than oh, thanks Tobias. A static scene is going to help you a bit more than a scene that's walkable. Now, walkable and a cinematic that you fly through, it's still, you have to make the amount of art in order to see it, right? So watch out for that stuff. Oh boy. All right, well, we got through all the questions. I'm sorry I cut it short. Well, I cut it short. This talk was double the time it was supposed to be. I think I'm going to be making dinner for the next week. That's probably what's going to happen. No, but I really appreciate you guys hanging out here and just riding the wave with me while I dig through my backlog of chaos.